Cole, this whole halftime TED Talk dissertation is freaking crazy, and you're deep in the freaking nuances. And like you say, there's 100 of these videos out there, and you found a whole bunch of thoughts and ideas and ties in. And I want to argue with you about one thing, but the lead into Peekaboo and then into the beginning of Peekaboo, where you point out the score, the Sam Jackson, Uncle Sam has said deduct one life, and then he's surrounded by men in white with a walled in garden, and the word for paradise is walled garden. So the X stage represents him going to heaven to see the. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just please talk about that bit and putting those pieces together to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, it seems kind of obvious to me because he literally says deduct one life, and then X meaning X'd out, meaning killed, and everything that is implied as I talked about, and that you guys have talked about, that is implied in the old culture cheat code, deduct one life. Narratively, it only makes sense to then enter this walled garden space surrounded by 23 people in white, making a total of 24, including Kendrick, which is the number Kobe Bryant wears, and Kobe Bryant is called out in the first second line of that song. And so it's just like, so there's a coincidence, or maybe not a coincidence. There's some kind of divine symbolism here. And then, just noticing that it was the only stage where they actually utilized the turf as part of the stage. The other stages are all solid, that kind of gray floor matting material that they're using throughout. And so you notice that detail. You notice that it's the people on the outside trying to get in. And so they literally are enclosed in this kind of safe space, plus the people in white. It all kind of added up to what I ended up feeling like was a very intentional detail that not only is he sent to this place after his life is deducted, i.e. tying into this idea of multiple lives, which ties into reincarnation, but also this video game motif where you do have multiple lives and that you die over and over. But also the fact that the 4 women come at the end of Peekaboo, and those are his guardian angels, his divine counsel. And they're the ones that he is corresponding with as he's like building up to the Not Like Us kill shot moment. And so that, to me, tied back into how the women are represented at the start of the show, which are his 16 guardian angels. So out of all, that was definitely like one of the bigger revelations of the show after my analysis.
I mean, does
it also seem like game levels too to you? Is that something we talked about? Like these being different stages in a game?
Yeah, that was one thing I kind of allude to, because I think it's after Humble and into DNA, the stands say stage 1. And that makes sense in my interpretation of it being structured after the hero's journey, because his call to adventure is when Uncle Sam says tighten up. So stage 1, you can think like act 1 or act 2, but the thing with that is that we can't see. I'm assuming there's more stage 2, stage 3s, but they're never shown on TV on the broadcast, so it's hard to know. But stage 1 implies that there are multiple stages, right?
Right?
Yeah.
The hero's journey 2 part of the Peekaboo explanation, and Peekaboo directly at the half point, and at the halfway point of the hero's journey, he experiences death or some sort of death. I was like, okay, wow, we're like, that's freaking crazy. And also, you note the 16 people who come out of the car at the beginning ties into the 16 homies he says he has lost. Like, I mean, there's
on whacked out murals, he says
there's his precision, and then there's your precision to notice these things, because he doesn't make it easy for us to find this stuff.
I mean, this is classic Kendrick, and that's, as I kind of prefaced the video with, I've studied his work so closely now for 10 years that there's patterns in his expression in terms of like how he conveys his ideas. and messaging. And so I'm kind of just attuned to his communication style. And so it still obviously takes me to sit down and spend a lot of time analyzing, but understanding his communication language, I do kind of know where it's like, oh, that's probably something. Maybe it's not always something that I think is something, but oftentimes I'm like, well, this is Kendrick Lamar. There's intention in pretty much every detail, especially with this. There's really no loose end on this entire performance. Everything plays a part into the story. And then, you know, the one word response that he gives when Ebro asked him, you know, what should we expect from this Super Bowl performance? And he says, storytelling, period. And it's like, oh, that's a huge signal to me that, again, hero's journey, this is more than just a sequence of songs. This is a story he's telling over this 13-minute performance,
which he loves to do, and we love to see. Which is also amazing. That the thing that I love about this definitive breakdown is like you spent the time to do the things that are front facing, and then also go all the way background, like you said, because you understand his mode of communication. Because a lot of times we were talking about this before, that a lot of times when we do this so much, we forget to talk about the things that are like, we assume everybody like knows, right? And that's the thing about the game over and the stages and really developing like, oh, this hero's journey, thinking about it like mythological story, like the Odyssey or something like that, and bringing it all the way up to a video game. That's just insane to me. So I watched the whole thing twice because
sick.
I just want to say you did a great job.
Oh, thank
For
you.
sure.
Yeah, I don't like the definitive name. That's a YouTube compromise that I made, because obviously there's been great analysis, but this one I feel like was the most comprehensive in terms of like, it is an hour and a half long.
You gotta play the game. You gotta play the kick play game. It's all right.
Yeah.
What's one of the big ideas or one of the big finds that you're like, I'm really proud that I put this together and a lot of other people didn't put this together?
I mean, I think, and maybe, I don't know what your point of contention with the video is, and maybe it overlaps here, but I thought the way that my interpretation that he alluded to pivotal moments in Black American history. Is this your contention? Is this it? I'm gonna guess this is it.
Piece of it. Go on. I wonder why you said that. Why you said those two things together? Is this what you're not confident about?
I'm confident in it, but it's the one thread that I can see people saying like you're reaching, because it's not as clearly defined as the other things in my mind. But he does start on square one, the square control button, with the GNX and people in a tightly closed space piling out of the car. I was not the first or the only person to think that was an allusion to, slave ships. And so that's square one. Then you see, and also squaring up on the square stage, this idea of fighting and the Black American experience being this continuous fight.
Squabble Up is a song too that happens at that point, right?
Exactly. And then you get the humble flag, the American flag made of black bodies, which many people have interpreted alluded to American slavery. But then after humble, when Uncle Sam says tighten up, and you hear gunshots and the black men scatter to opposing ends of the field, alluding to the Great Migration. And this is all linear too, right? It's not like he's jumping around in timelines. This is a linear expose of this timeline. And then after DNA, the perimeter of the field is lit up as if it's a prison, and evoking mass incarceration. Deduct one life being allusion to the assassination of black leaders during the 60s and before that, of course. But to me, that was just like, wow, he's not only doing all the other layers, his personal journey, the Drake layers, the Great American Game, and the symbolism of that. It's like he's actually alluding to the entire history of his people. I'm just like, is just, that was like something I didn't see people talk about. And I was like, wow, I think it's there. I don't know if you guys were convinced. I'd be curious to hear.
Most of that, I believe. The Great Migration piece, I was like, wait, what? And I rewound that, and it does tie into the historical narrative, the timeline. But I was like, oh, like that. See, I mean, and I could see somebody being like, yeah, we're going to tell the history of African Americans, and it goes, slavery, resistance, mass incarceration, right? And you could do that. And obviously the Great Migration is a huge part of it. That was the one piece that I was like, really? That represents the Great, and visually, yes, they are dispersing to the Northeast and Cali. I mean, yes, that, I don't know. That was the one thing I was like, really? I don't know.
Reaching for the sky a bit.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't use the R word. So I'll never say that word, but I could see it. It seems like it's a piece, because it seems like the integral parts are the black bodies making up the flag, then the prison industrial system. It seems like it's three pieces of it all, and having the Great Migration in the middle seems like that could be there, but it seems like not as important as the 1, 2, 3 of
right.
like the whole story. But loved it either way. It is. If I was Kendrick, I'd be like, yeah.
But
it's also the
discussion of his clothes was really interesting and powerful. And you talk about, it's all these pieces of protection.
Yeah, which ties into this video game motif of him being an avatar, empowered or selected as you would select a video game character, empowered by his ancestors that we see in the beginning on top of the GNX. And then, you realize that what do video game characters usually wear? A suit of armor. And so that explains the leather materials, of course. And then the evil eye ring is the very first image that we see. It's literally centered in the frame is the evil eye ring, which is a symbol of protection. You realize the winged pin on his helmet / hat is an allusion to Mercury. And somebody pointed out to me that Mercury, I'm now forgetting the detail, is related to being in Gemini.
I think so.
It's like the Gemini, the Mercury is I can't remember it, but there's a tie there that someone pointed out. But anyways, and so you just go on down the line of his wardrobe, and it's like, it's playing with this idea of protection, a suit of armor, someone that is going into this squabble up, this fight, this coup of Uncle Sam. Like, he's wearing armor.
But then the bell bottoms represent peace,
or just maybe an allusion to their origins, which was part of the counterculture movement of the 60s. And I know I didn't go into like the specifics of jeans, but there's some history there, as I understand too.
As a working person's clothing.
Right. Yeah. Mercury is the ruling planet of for Gemini in astrology.
Okay.
Yeah. And also Mercury is the messenger of the gods, right? So he's the
exactly.
Right?
And that ties into the Gloria on his jacket being his pen, but also glory to God. And so his words are these, and he's long been branded himself as a messenger of God. So it ties in to that as well, with the Mercury tie there. So again, it's literally every detail, and it makes sense though. It's like you are going to have literally hundreds of millions of people watching you, and this is Kendrick Lamar. Of course, every detail is going to be kind of have some intention.
And he also knows people like you exist. It's like, let's be real about it though. Yeah. It's at this point, he like knows Cole personally. Like he knows that like there's this guy that be breaking my shit down. So, and it's like I do this, and he knows that happens. So I think that's important to understand how great this story at the level from all the people.
I even appreciated what you said at the beginning about the red button and how the entire stadium becomes this red button, which speaks back to what Drake had been. I didn't even pick that up.
For those that don't know, like Drake posted this now kind of infamous meme of him having this red button song. Punch recently said that was one of his downfalls strategically when he was on Curtis King's show, saying that, you're building up so much anticipation for this one move that you had, and you clearly didn't have any other moves behind that one. And so just put so much emphasis and pressure on this one thing, which of course we all know what happened with it. But that was
love
that
that you
was one
said
of the
that.
things where I'm like, is that intentional? Was that just simply Apple Music branding that just happened to look like either the red button and or a start button on a video game, which is obviously another thread you could link to it, which is the big red start button being the start of the show with this video game motif. And then it's like, then you think, okay, well, the whole battle started with first person shooter and an allusion to Super Bowl. So is this whole video game motif also a response to Drake that also works in all this historical and personal threads? And then you're like, well, this guy's a fucking genius because like it all works so perfectly together. Like it's incredible.
Incredible. And I love that Punch said that about him not having anything after that, because I didn't even think about it in those terms of like, yeah, Drake said this is gonna end him. It's the idea of that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. That like you think that this, if anyone ever boxes, you think first time someone boxes, you think that like when you throw out like that haymaker, this person's gonna just suddenly go away. That's not how that works. People just still stand after you hit them. And if you're not able to defend and retaliate, you're gonna be out. And I think that's amazing that Punch was just like, yeah, he said right there, like that's all you got. These like lies.
I mean, it's valuable to be underestimated, right? Even though it hurts the ego, it's helpful to overdo expectations as opposed to Drake underdoing them.
Yeah, expectations. But the first person shooter all the way to this being a video game, I did not think about that.
You know, Cole, it took me a while to realize while watching it, you don't use video, and obviously you can't use video, but you use the photographs and just the speed of the whole piece such that I don't miss video, and I didn't even realize it wasn't video.
Yeah, that took a lot of work because I had to fucking some of those are Getty sourced image, which I have a license for, but a lot of those are just screenshots of the show because NFL is like notorious for taking down any piece of content that uses their stuff. So I had to screenshot all those individually by hand, which like added a ton of work to the production. But I knew that was a hindrance going in, so I tried to structure the pace of it and everything. Knowing that was a limitation. Even like the sound clips, I couldn't use too much of. So we're on Dissect proper. I use long excerpts of the song before we analyze them. This I had to be a little more strategic. So I'm glad it worked out.
It sure did.
Definitely did.
But it also what was nice about that is it actually slowed me down even more, and it forced me to kind of frame by frame look at every detail. So ended up helping in the end.
It makes your brain slow down too. Like when you're talking about the red button, I'm looking at it. I can compare it to the reel or story that Drake put out, right? And I'm looking at the image and my brain is really thinking about it. But I wanted to see, are you going to see the GNX tour, or have you done it already?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I have my ticket. I spent the most amount of money I've ever spent on a ticket. I'm like literally right in the front. So I'm very excited. I'm seeing it in about a month.
Wait, how much did you drop on it on the ticket?
I can't say that. I can't say it.
Put out his why are you gonna put out his funds? Too much money?
I mean, I think I spent $4,500, but I'm not like in the front. But I got a nice seat. I think it's next week.
Where are you? You go New York?
Yeah, in Jersey. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we don't have any.
I think I'm going to Denver because I got a hookup. So I feel sorry for y'all and y'all paying.
You got to get on a flight.
I might have been offered free tickets.
Yeah, it's $500 for a flight.
Yeah, I might have been offered free tickets after I bought my very expensive one, but it's fine.
Oh,
right.
Support that.
I mean, you do, as Green was alluding to before, you do form an important part of the sort of Kendrick ecosystem that he puts out these very dense things that most people don't understand. And he does rely on you and other folks like you. I have no idea how much he actually knows of what you do or what any other individual does, but he knows people will talk this through, because they used to do an interview with like Rolling Stone or something and explain a bunch of stuff, or Cream, and oh, now I understand what they were saying or doing. now they need you or somebody. So like it is an important part of the entire experience.
I think so. I mean, that's and this was pre-Drake, you know, like I don't know, it seems like people forget now that like I was doing this 10 years ago with To Pimp a
Yeah.
Butterfly, you know, it's like
Yeah.
this is nothing new for Kendrick fans, especially ones that understand the magnitude and importance of his art, you know, as not something that transcends music. I think he is just one of the most important living artists that we have. If
Sure.
not, might end up being the most important in terms of someone that is reaching this many people and expressing what he does express. And so, yeah, I mean, this is nothing new for me. I think people are more equipped to know that he is very intentional now, but this is a long-standing thing that people have been doing, like myself, like for years now. So this is really nothing new.
And it's important.
And he knows
I'm
that.
glad
He knows it. Yeah.
Very much knows that, because I mean, Punch referenced this, people breaking it down in that interview too. So if he's saying, he's communicating, like he sees everything.
Like it's important because it helps us further understand what's really going on. I could love it in a dense, opaque form, but then when you break down, well, this relates to the line before and the line after, and then this double entendre relates to those lines. And oh, now I really know what he's saying, and now I more deeply understand how genius he is. All of that literary analysis just helps us appreciate the music even more.
Yeah, I mean I've dedicated my life to that idea, you know, with context. I always say like great art gives you what you give it, meaning like if you give it your time and attention, if it is truly great and it truly has something to say, it will reward you, you know, and that is the premise of my life right now, in terms of what I do.
So much popular music now doesn't do that. The cream of it does. Like, you know, Greed, and I don't know your full background, but we've spent a lot of time thinking about like fine art, like visual art, like performance, and like that stuff is so much like you have to come into the gallery and do some work to understand what the artist is doing and do some research, and then you're like, oh, I'm playing a game with you. And so much music is just like, here, I'm just handing you the various, and then the artists, you know, and then there's the rare artists who like, you know, are daring to make the audience work.
Yeah, no, I mean it's funny because as we were kind of talking about, like the criticism that I face the most, and I'm sure you guys do too, is just like the idea of reaching, right? And it's like you wouldn't go into a museum, and it could be because it bothers me so much because you specifically because it's about hip hop, and I'm like, you wouldn't go into a fine art museum and someone gives you interpretation of the art and you say you're reaching. It's like, no, like that part of the process is inherent to the museum going experience, right? You're supposed to sit in front of a piece of art and think about it. What is this? How is this relating? How am I reacting to this emotionally? What's the history of this piece, and what is this artist trying to say about whenever it was created? You might get a little blurb on the side giving you some, like, you know, some guidance about what it's about or why it was created, but it's still on you to sit there and like think about the experience that you're having. And then because music is this thing where it is part, like, I guess the majority of it is commercial, but there's clearly this segment of it that is fine art. And so when those worlds convolute each other, it really bothers me because it undermines the brilliance and the importance of people like Kendrick Lamar or Beyonce, who have the veneer of a pop star, but who are actually fine artists working on a massive scale.
I think that there's a problem with comprehension, and I always just chalk it up with that. If people are like at a 6th grade reading level, I can't expect them to come up with anything else other than feeling that they don't understand something and having the first word that they could come out with, which is reaching, because they can't express anything else. They can't even tell you why it is not that. They can only say that they do not agree with it because it feels bad to them. And usually, the study's shown, when people think somebody's being smart or smarter than them, they get angry.
Well, it's also,
people get mad.
It's all yes to that.
Even though it's not about being smarter, it's just that if they feel that way.
No, yeah.
But also, like, it's hard to conceive of things that you don't know. Like, the world does not exist. There aren't things you don't know in the world. You think everything that exists I know. Like you don't think about there's things I don't know, right?
Mhm.
So if I'm saying there's all these levels
If
to
you're
this
not curious.
music that you don't recognize, you're like, no, that can't exist because I don't see it. But what I would pose to
Right.
you is the when you're combing through, what do you want to see so that you know, okay, I'm not reaching, the evidence is there, this is referenced here, here, and here, so this is nailed down, versus like I'm as much as the other side wants to talk about reaching, I'm sure there are things that we are not catching that Kendrick and his closest people are like, oh, they didn't figure out this, this, and this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm 100% sure of that, you know. And yeah, to your question about what makes me feel good about the interpretation is usually what you said, because it relates to multiple other things within the same song or album, or in this case performance. You just want to look at patterns, and that those patterns end up becoming like the foundation of your analysis, because they all kind of support each other. So that's usually what I try to rely on in terms of like, is this a stretch? Am I just looking at something and making it something that it's not? And with Kendrick, it's just really difficult because the temptation to make everything something grand is there, and there's also the temptation of like, I understand there's a certain part of the audience that will just buy anything I say, and there's a temptation to sensationalize stuff that isn't quite there just for the sake of my own episode and the performance of it. And that's something that I'm always conscious about. It's like just trying to stay as close to the art as possible, and not making it about my analysis as much as I am. Obviously, it's always going to be subjective, but making it as the most objective that is possible in a subjective analysis, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I think you should also leave space in analyzing art. Just like if you go to find arts gallery and someone's putting on your guide, there's meaning that you can take on yourself. There's meaning that is not in the intention of the artist. That doesn't mean that that meaning's not there. And that's the whole thing about art analysis that exists. Of course, Kendrick is very calculated and intentional. But the first thing about music, another reason why I think people have a problem with us analyzing, is that the first thing that has to do with music is feeling. That's what music is.
Yep.
That's why music's in movies, is because it conveys a feeling. It makes you feel something right away.
Yep.
So the first thing, even when I'm a very calculated person, but the first thing I do is just feel and let things come out. And Kendrick said this himself, that he's like, if I'm happy that day, I go in the studio, I'm making a happy song. I'm not going to force myself to do something else, because he knows that the feeling will be off. It's like, however I feel, I put it out there. I think a lot of times the calculation and intentionality comes from the editing and the process of making a song. Why else would a song or an album take that long to make? First, you got to ruminate, obviously, like what do I want to talk about? How do I feel? But you go in the studio all the time. That doesn't mean that song ends up this way, which is, for instance, Element. I love Element because it started off like a full-on diss and graduated into this other thing in a bigger concept. And it's kind of like the start of this entire battle right there is in Element, because I think people got word of it. That became an issue between camps and conceptually, and then boom, we got the halftime show.
You make an interesting you make an interesting point that artistic intention can exist beyond what the artist is consciously thinking of, right? Because anything you paint or you sing or you whatever, like all the things you've ever seen come into it. Your intention may be this, but there's other noise in the signal.
I think realizing those things is what makes you a great artist too. You put it out and you felt it, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, this is why I said that. I brought the story up before, but I'll make it short. Paul McCartney wrote this song that I lost my little girl when he was like 12 or 14. I think it was his first song. And he just wrote a song. He thought he just wrote a rock song. Years later, when he's like in his 20s, he's like, that song was about me losing my mother to a few years ago. But he didn't see that until he was older. He's like, wow. And he looked at the lyrics. He's like, this song is about me losing my mother. And because it's feeling, and you're just good at writing, so you conveyed it. And he said that it took him 15 years before he realized that. And
Dog,
that's a great artist.
I was just a bit last night at I talked to Tyler Perry. He was playing Medea for like 10 years before he realized he was doing an impression of his mother.
Yeah. It's hard to see when you're in it, when you're just feeling, when you're just, that coming from the source and you're just conveying that emotion.
Cole, what did you say was the meaning of Uncle Sam saying the old culture cheat code?
That was, I mean, I definitely leaned on other people's interpretation of that. But that the consensus seemed to be that it was, directly before that line, Kendrick is with his dead homies and being joyous, and they're very free and they're expressing themselves. And so I took it as, well, many people took it as like understanding their power in numbers and collective and community and resistance through community and collectivism, and that anytime that's the culture cheat code is when the unification, and so feeling threatened, Uncle Sam deducts a life, because and that relating to taking out Martin Luther King or leader of the Black Panthers and go on down the line, but essentially stopping a collective movement by through murder, essentially.
Right. I felt like it was like, oh, you brought Black people. That's too easy as a performer. Right? Like you it's too easy. You put a bunch of Black people performing on stage. Of course we're gonna like that. That's a cheat. I don't know if that's sort of synonymous to what you're saying. I think it's a little different.
It seems
what you're
different.
saying. What do you mean by that exactly? You're just saying that the culture cheat code is that because the mainstream culture loves not to be in the culture, but loves to be a voyeur to the culture, that this is the cheat code. Okay, I see that. No, that seems apparent, right?
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. And you can see that in how content is online, right? Where it's like they love to see a whole group of dudes rapping in the street, the mic and all that type of stuff. That stuff is more clicked on than if you're in some polished area as a rapper, right? Or looking like you're a singer. You're gonna make more noise with that. Just the voyeuristic nature of mainstream.
It takes a lot of trust for an artist like this to put so many Easter eggs on the screen and just know some of them they'll catch, some of them they won't.
And that's what's cool about, or that's what I try to do with, like, this took me, I mean, when was the performance? Early February, and this just came out last week. And part of that reasoning was just that, like, because he is known to be so meticulous, the instant reaction and analysis is great and it gets the dialogue moving. But with a piece so layered as this, I personally just wanted to give it the time I thought it deserved and not rush to make, a quick analysis.
I thought you was giving up because I remember you talking to me about doing it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it don't matter when you do it. And I was like, this man gave up. And then when it dropped, I was like, thank you.
That's kind of the premise of Dissect, though. It's like I returned to older albums years after they've come out because part of that is a statement of like, no, like if it's a great work, it deserves to be talked about. And a lot of the times, what the artist is expressing in the moment it was released becomes even more true as time goes on. Kendrick certainly is one of those artists, but I like the idea of returning to essentially modern art but in this kind of fast moving and the pressure of instant reaction and instant analysis and people move on after a week. Like, no, like there's certain works that we can go back to 3 years later and like the discussion is just as rich.
For sure. And you live in that space. And I think there is a slight difference between I'm revisiting something from 3 to 5 years ago and from 3 months ago. And like the internet YouTube culture is very like, yesterday or 5-10 years ago. And you're sort of in a middle space. And just as a YouTuber who's going to put many hours and months into this video, and you're like, so we're going to break down something that happened 3 months ago that 100 other people have already done, but I have a reputation for doing this shit. So, a ton of people are going to come watch it anyway. but I wonder if there's a nervousness about like, you know, this is a potentially tricky subject
in terms of the timing, or
in
just
terms of the timing, and like when you do other things you do, it's not as crowded a field. This is like a crowded
Right.
field, and you're like,
Right.
the way I do things, I'm willing to be the 100th video.
Yeah.
But you know, I have confidence in what I do, so I'll still be, you know, important and watched. But like, I would feel a lot of pressure of like, ooh, wow, we're gonna be 3 months and we're gonna be 100th in, and like,
Right. Yeah, I mean, strategically, I understand all that, and I definitely, obviously, I consider that. It's part of my thought process. But at the end of the day, what usually always wins, and I'm, you know, I'm in a position where I can do this. But like in my mind, at least, it's like it's probably like how green you feel after you're done an album. It's like you want it to perform well, but the statement has been made, the analysis has been made, and it's out there. Whether people watch it, it's great if they do. Once it's done, though, I'm just like, whatever. It's like it actually doesn't really matter that much to me. Of course, I want it to.
I think
well
it shouldn't matter at all, because it's like there's a difference between news and art analysis. Like news cares about time. Right. Art analysis doesn't matter. And you can do this. This is my perspective. You can make another one. You can make another one of the same damn thing. If you had something else to say, it's going to be just as good. It's like, you know what? I missed this. This is the most definitive breakdown of the halftime show. Part 2. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if there's more to actually come up with, because there's an art and craft in the analysis itself. So that's the beauty of all.
And I know you guys wanted to touch on the Grand National Tour. I'm really curious to see how the interplay between I mean, it seems like, at least in my mind, this whole era of GNX is all part of this same world that is kind of interrelated. I'm really interested to see how he uses the buttons that are the same buttons at the Super Bowl show in the GNX tour. I haven't actually looked at the set. I've been trying to avoid too much of it.
Have you seen anything like, or what have you seen? Because I saw there's visuals, and Beyonce, I saw it too. And I'm okay with seeing things before, because I don't. It's just better when you see it in live. But there's visuals, so there's like a narrative visual, like in the beginning with SZA acting and him acting, getting like their acting off, and they like pull up to a gas station. So please pay attention, because you're gonna have work to do after seeing this tour, because there's a lot going on already that I've seen from the visuals.
I would
have you seen any of that? Or no.
I've seen just bits and pieces, not enough to say like this is that, or, you know, anything like that. But I just assumed there would be. What's interesting to me is how they have been. It wasn't just SZA comes out and performs, and then Kendrick comes. It's a true unified split headline show where they each get their moments. They get collaborations, you know,
changes
moments
and all that.
Yeah. Which I assume there's got to be some kind of story or a thread or through line.
Are you going to be able to see what type of seats you got? Are you in the pit, or you like got a seat?
No, I'm in like, I don't know if technically it is a chair, but I assume everyone will be standing. It's like literally like I'll be able to like touch the stage type of deal.
Got you.
I don't know if I'll be able to see it all, but once I experience it, I'll go back and look at all the videos and try to put it together, you know? But I mean, even just using the same control buttons tells me thematically it's going to relate somehow, whether it's a linear story or it just kind of tangentially thematically relates. But
I only have 10 minutes left in the video. Do you talk about how the stage begins to look like the PG Lang logo?
Oh no. The stage itself?
Yeah, like 3/4 of the way through. I think after the X stage, right? You showed there's the rectangle, and then the circular piece that becomes the PG Lang logo. Does it not? Green, did you not see that?
I did not see that.
Like the two kids? The two kids? Is that so? The
PG Lang logo is 2 kids holding
no,
up
I meant the letter logo.
The letters?
Oh, interesting. I hadn't seen anyone talk about that. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that either. And I was like, I thought that was obvious. Hold on. I'm looking. I'm trying to see if I can figure it out. Find it real quick.
Did not see the PG Lang logos, but definitely in the
inverted V. Yes, that was good catch. Of course.
Oh yeah, and the circles too. The circle at the moment of unification with the men and women, and SZA being a part of that. That's something I'm definitely looking forward to the Grand National Tour to see if that's represented too. Because Kendrick, since Mr. Morale, has really painted women in this divine way that seems to be carrying over in GNX and all the visuals and everything. And him headlining with SZA, I assume that kind of yin yang completion thing is tied into there somehow.
And you obviously seen the Mr. Morale tour, right?
What's up?
You saw the Mr. Morale tour, right? Yeah, because he basically had women as angels and on that tour as well. So
angels, but also seductive. When they're in red, I believe it was his sex addiction kind of represented there and being pulled by it.
You edit yourself?
No, I have a editor now. His name's Kevin Pooler. He's great. But he was an audio editor that is learning video on the fly and doing an amazing job. So shout out Kevin. Because Dissect was an audio podcast for 8 years exclusively, and just recently went video. So we've been learning a lot together.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. I mean, I know that video helped you get more exposure, correct?
Yeah, it's interesting because YouTube is a separate audience from Spotify, which I put, it's a Spotify podcast, so it's been primarily promoted on Spotify, but now it's getting this separate YouTube audience as YouTube has come to kind of dominate the podcast space in relationship with it, podcast now just being video conversations rather than just audio.
Yeah.
Been interesting because I started a podcast so I could hide, and now I'm having to talk to a camera.
Yeah. Now you got to fly, turn on the Batcave lights.
I know, yeah. I resisted the urge to do the fucking color blue YouTube background, that everyone does.
Yeah. But you started with with visuals with the Instagram and social, and that probably drove a lot of attention also to the podcast.
Yeah, right? That's a double-edged sword though. I have a really complicated relationship with those videos. Because now that there's just there's a lot of people that just think I get called a social media account a lot. I'm just like, no. There's this whole other podcast, which is the thing that I believe in. Like this 60-second clip is supposed to be a bite-sized version to entice you to go back to the podcast.
You can't worry about those people.
Yeah. But
you just got to worry about the people that click on your link and go to the podcast. It's just an avenue.
Yeah.
It's a funnel. Who cares about those people?
It's all a funnel.
Yeah, it's just
trying to play the game. Part of me is just dreads. I don't know. It just feels reductive sometimes. I'm just like, there's more to this than a 60-second video. I don't, but that's my own thing.
But you actually have more than that 60-second video.
Yeah, that's why I'm able to make it with with a clear mind. I'm like, I got to do all this other work that means something. I can do some cotton candy.
One of my favorite is the Igor, you talking about Igor, and I'm waiting for you. What's good with this chromacopia? Are you gonna go back to chromacopia and go crazy?
I imagine so. Yeah, the time it's the right time. I just did Igor for season 10, so somewhat recently. But chromacopia, I mean, I really enjoyed the project. I thought it was I think it's his best project. Maybe not my favorite, but I think technically it's maybe his best. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I kind of think Igor's is his best still.
I love chromacopia. Okay. I love chromacopia.
Well, I definitely love chromacopia. Because when we're talking about best, we're talking about thematically being there. The fact that whole thing is a loop, the narrative that's in Igor.
The musicality of chromacopia was incredible. I mean, there were so many songs we talked about that were this song would be great with a band, with an orchestra, with they're songs with movements, and of course, Tyler is an amazing instrument. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for more. Thank you so much for this. Thanks so much for hanging out with us again. We'll have you back.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite. Always flattered. And we'll get you guys back on Dissect soon too.
Thank you.
Oh, please do.